Here's something you may not know about the Sun Belt Conference, guys. It produced the most eligible teams of any conference in America with 12. Only one was ranked, James Madison, and ironically enough, the Dukes will not be playing in this conference championship game because of the stupid NCAA rules that prevented from doing so because they are in year 2 of being an FBS program. Now, in JMU's place, representing the East Division in this Sun Belt Championship game is Appalachian State. And that's not really all that unfair in my eyes when you consider the Mountaineers just a couple weeks ago beat JMU on the road with ESPN on campus. Last week, Appalachian State, they finished their regular season with a 55-27 home win over Georgia Southern. Big edge in total yards, 532 to 360. The Mountaineers did trail by 11 after the first quarter, but Aguilar, the quarterback, he throws for 4 touchdowns. He now has 3,200 yards passing with 33 touchdown passes on the year. 3 different backs in this offense average at least 4.9 yards per carry. It's an offense that was top 30 in yards per play was Appalachian State, and their defense, they got better as the season wore along, guys. Allowed 4.53 yards per play in 4 November contests against Georgia Southern. The only second half touchdown allowed came on a kickoff return. But something we do want to make note of here is in the 4 losses this season for Appalachian State, they did allow 6.74 yards per play. So there was a big gap over what they allowed down the stretch versus what they allowed in their losses. We'll get to those losses in just a minute. But that's Appalachian State. Now on to Troy. They win the weaker West Division by virtue of a 35-17 win over Southern Miss last week. 9th straight win overall for the Trojans. 7 of those 9 by 18 points or more. And we're talking about a defense that has allowed just 2 rushing touchdowns its last 7 games. The Trojans, their only 2 losses this season to Kansas State and to JMU. And when they lost to JMU, that was by 2 points, and they'd held the Dukes under 300 total yards. The Troy offense, led by quarterback Gunnar Watson, 26 touchdowns, 5 interceptions on the year. Remember, this is a team that was 12-2 last year. They did a better job of fighting off the regression monster than did rival South Alabama, who was supposed to be the toughest competitor in the division. This game not going to make my card, but if I had to give out something, I would probably lean towards the points. Like I said, Appalachian State did beat James Madison. And you look at their 4 losses, okay? 4 losses is misleading for ASU because they've been outscored by more than 3 only once in regulation all year. And that was a game against Old Dominion where they gave up a touchdown and 2-point conversion in the final minute. So slight lean to Appalachian State here, plus the points against Troy in the Sun Belt Conference championship game, but it will not make my card.
Sun Belt Championship, Appalachian State and Troy, and you probably couldn't find 2 teams more veteran or experienced in positioning themselves for this type of game. These 2 teams constantly in the upper echelon of the league and always seemingly playing for a spot in the title game. This year, that goal is achieved by both. Both of these teams kind of predicated on the same philosophies. They like the trench play for everything to start there, offensive and defenses. They want to establish a run game first. Doesn't mean they're run heavy. They just would prefer to start with the run game and work off of that play action, RPO, that type of stuff. 2 capable quarterbacks here. Aguilar for Appalachian State certainly has come on, has been playing most of the year, was put into action due to injury, but played better as the season went on. And of course, Gunnar Watson, mentioned by Brian, has been a veteran quarterback for Troy State for a couple of years now. All these things combined kind of lend themselves to a game that would be lower scoring. When you add in the weather aspect to this one, you might want to look toward the under here. Now, earlier in the week, the time frame that this game is going to be played in between 3 o'clock and 8 o'clock Central Time was scheduled for constant thunderstorms. Now those thunderstorms have, gone by the wayside and just become rain for 5 straight hours in this contest between 3 and 8. Chance of precipitation here somewhere between 60 and 80 throughout the game. The heavier percentages are early in this contest. So perhaps if you can get out of the first half with a 17 or less point total, you're probably on your way to cashing a ticket here. I think also that the steady rain is probably a better forecast if you're playing under than thunderstorms, because remember, when lightning's in the air, they take the teams they move them to the locker rooms and bring them back out once the lightning's disappeared. And sometimes, if it dries up a little bit, conditions are better. Won't be the case here. They'll be playing in constant rain. It's not the be all end all, but it's certainly a factor to consider when handicapping this game. If I'm looking at keys where matchups are concerned in this game for Appalachian State defensively, you got to stop the run. It's no secret that Troy head coach John Summerall loves to pound away with his star tailback, his workhorse tailback, Kamani Vidal. But Troy hasn't been running the football well lately. Only 3 yards per carry over their last 5 games doesn't bode well. Again, to a point that Brian made, Appalachian State comes in here as the hottest team in the Sun Belt, and that includes on the defensive side, where they were not good to start the year. After they allowed 301 rushing yards to Southern Miss and Frank Gore Jr., Appalachian State tightened up significantly and allowed just 98 rushing yards per game, 3.0 per carry over their last four. And those four included some of the more powerful Sun Belt teams where the run game is concerned: Georgia State, Marshall, James Madison. So they didn't do it against the weaklings of the league. They tightened up against the better teams where running the football is concerned. That could be a slight concern here for Troy if they can't get the run game going. For Troy, what you want to do is just limit the big plays, the home runs, the quick strikes against Appalachian, because they've been explosive as of late. For Appalachian State, they've scored 13 TDs from outside the red zone in their last 5 games. It's been a lot of big plays for this offense, and the numbers have picked up, the productivity's picked up, the scoreboard is picked up for them. But Troy's only allowed 5 of those all season long. So you have strength against strength where that's concerned. Troy's number 2 rush defense overall in the Sun Belt, of course, second only to James Madison. And again, remember that sack yardage is taken out of your rushing defense totals, but Troy has been a great rush defense all season long. It might be tough for the Mountaineers to get things going on the ground here. Another reason why maybe, you take them out of balance and rhythm, you might be looking at a lower scoring game. Both teams have been terrific at rushing the passer. Troy, 40 sacks this season, ranked number 1 in the conference. Appalachian State, 32 sacks on the season, ranked number 3 in the conference. So both quarterbacks could be under some heat in this game. I think that both of these teams defensively are equipped to stop the opposing offense's strength, which would lead me toward under. This game, both of these teams, Troy especially plays at a considerably slower pace offensively. So you might use that as a factor in an under here. Troy has scored 37 points per game over their last 3, which makes it look like their offense is picking up. But again, those games are against some of the worst defenses in the Sun Belt. This has not been one over the last 4 weeks. I think physicality rules here. I think that defenses rule here. To me, 53 seemed to be far too much for this game. So 28-24 gets us paid here. And to me, that seems like a high scoring final for this contest. So going to play this one between Troy and Appalachian State Sun Belt Conference Championship under the total of 53.